Yo YouTube, GK back, and this video is going to be about how Final Fantasy X-2 has influenced almost every mainline Final Fantasy title since its release. I know, and you're probably thinking how or why. Well, I'm going to show you. I'm going to do like a countdown, a top 5 list kind of. They're not going to be in a particular order of importance, as I think they're all pretty equal and valid. But I'm gonna start off with like the first point that might get overlooked and might be the weakest of the evidence I'm presenting for you, is that Final Fantasy 15 kind of took the idea of having one gender cast of mainline protagonists. Final Fantasy X2, as you know, is all 3 girls, which Final Fantasy hasn't had a female protagonist in a very long time, since Terra. So when it first came out, of course, it was a little shocking to everybody. But to have a whole one gender type of protagonist list is something that Final Fantasy 15 took from that. You know, they had the 4 guys. Well, Final Fantasy X3 was the 4 girls. So like I said, that was probably one of the weaker moments, but this next one is very undeniable. It's that Final Fantasy 13, the first game we'll use in this example, uses something called the paradigm shift. Now, this is not unlike any ATB. Of course, Final Fantasy has the action time battle systems. They've had that before. But the way you can shift in that battle to a different type of class or type character, Final Fantasy X2 kind of pioneered with their dress spheres. So you would change a dress sphere, say from Black Mage to Warrior. It's the same concept with Ravager and Medic. So that was a direct correlation there between the shifting, because it was one of the best aspects of Final Fantasy X2. And then right after that, 13 comes, and they kind of took that same mantra, active time battle, and shifting your character's roles, which was new to the series when X2 did it, considering we usually have stagnant characters with the one specific role. So that was kind of something that 13 kind of adopted from X2 and changed it for their system. The next thing is again going to be from Final Fantasy 13. It's going to be Final Fantasy 13 Lightning Returns. Now, this is more of a direct relation to changing your outfit, for Lightning also changes her abilities. And so she has different types of outfits in Final Fantasy 13 she can wear, which I think I'm going to be doing a live stream of Final Fantasy 13-3. So as it's pretty clear when it's just stated out loud, that is a direct changing and representation, copy even, of what Final Fantasy X2 had done. So I just thought those were interesting things from Final Fantasy 13. Moving on to the next game, World of Final Fantasy. If you haven't played that, I really suggest you go play that. But World of Final Fantasy introduced stacks and sizes of creatures, small, medium, and large. Well, in the HD remaster, like the international version of X2, which we didn't get till much later, you're able to put monsters in your party. So I left this here because this is going to also tie into Final Fantasy 13. So you have your stacks, right? Which, you have the small, medium, large, which in Final Fantasy, in World of Final Fantasy, you have creatures that can fight with you, right? And that is not unlike Final Fantasy 13-2, which you can also have creatures to fight with you. But for right now, World of Final Fantasy uses those creatures in stacks, literally like top to bottom or bottom to top, and you stack the monsters according to size. It works a little differently in X2, where it's number of party members. And that's true to World of Final Fantasy too. You can't have 3 large characters. But the concept is that the creatures that fight with you have a certain amount, a size and a capacity, and that was what X2 did with their tale of their monsters. That's going to come into play later, so keep that in mind, that every fiend has a tail, right? Because they're people. World of Final Fantasy took that same idea with stacks and capturing the monsters, because X2, if you recall, you do send out little pods, they call them, depending on the size. A small pod, you send it to a location, let's just say Besaid, and you capture a monster there, and then you can therefore use that monster in an arena to fight. That is basically World of Final Fantasy, except that you do that in the main world and not as a side mission, so to speak. Going back to what I was saying about the Fiend's Tales, in Final Fantasy 15 we learned that the demons are actually people. This concept isn't totally exclusive to Final Fantasy X2, as in Final Fantasy X we learned that, but it's expanded on with the Fiend Tales, right? And if you notice in Final Fantasy 15, there's a lot of moments in which the demons have left messages. It's to show that they are people. Even Arden tells us that they were once people. So they kind of took that whole lore and mythos of the creatures you're fighting are actually people, or transformed people in that manner. I mentioned the capture system from World of Final Fantasy is just a rework of the capture system from Final Fantasy X2. I mentioned the sizes, because all those monsters, they all play a role there in that whole concept I'm bringing forth. That Final Fantasy X2 has introduced the sizes of monsters, has introduced the Fiend Tales explicitly, that Final Fantasy X didn't do. And you can kind of see the comparisons that I'm going with. So the last one, it's kind of a short video, is Final Fantasy 15's Tom and Estro, or it's the battle arena where you fight monster on monster and you cheer them on. That's again another take from Final Fantasy X2's creature system, where you can have your creature be more aggressive and therefore it just attacks a lot, or you can cheer them on to be like less stars. They use like a star rating, and instead of like an item in Final Fantasy 15's monster arena. So again, that was taken from Final Fantasy X2. So I just wanted to bring a lot of those things to light and really show that Final Fantasy X2 has many mechanics and thematic decisions that have shaped a lot of the future Final Fantasies that I'm talking about this list. So to briefly review and maybe a little more clear for you guys, we have Final Fantasy X2 has set the standard for paradigm shifts in Final Fantasy 13. It set the standard for having monsters fight with you, for example, in Final Fantasy 13-2. It shows the dress sphere changes and how your outfit can change your abilities, Final Fantasy 13-3. World of Final Fantasy, it shows that the monsters have sizes, you can stack them, and you can capture them. Those were taken from Final Fantasy X2. And then Final Fantasy 15 takes the concept that the demons were actually people, and you can cheer on your monsters when they fight in the arena with either an item to make them attack or defend at your command, sort of. It's still a lot of RNG in those fights. Same thing with Final Fantasy X2. You can't directly control the monsters, whereas in World of Final Fantasy, you could directly control them. I just wanted to highlight Final Fantasy X2 because I was playing it again, and then now that we have all this post games of X2, I could really show you that a lot of things were taken from Final Fantasy X2 for future Final Fantasy titles, and I just thought it was really cool to notice. So there's a few, about 5 or 6 reasons why Final Fantasy X2 has set the standard for post games in the Final Fantasy franchise mainline titles. Maybe that's not the right phrasing. Maybe it's more so that Final Fantasy X2 has lent itself to all of those Final Fantasies I mentioned in more ways than one in most cases for the games. So it was a quick little video. I just wanted to let you know, stay tuned for the reading of Final Fantasy X 2.5. I know it's different to kind of see on YouTube, and I know there's many ways I could try to do it, but it's just supposed to be relaxing, and we get into the story, we talk about it. So stay tuned for that. Also stay tuned for the video I'm gonna make on why the bomb scene with Titus makes perfect sense, and yes, I said perfect sense. I'm waiting to finish the novella first to drop the video, as I want to make sure my theories are correct. And then stay tuned for Final Fantasy 13 3 playthrough, as I just haven't beaten that game. I've done about halfway. I'm just gonna restart it and try it again. So that's kind of that. I'm GK. Have a good day. If there's anything you think I missed or other influences Final Fantasy X2 has had on the franchise as a whole, let me know in the comments. If there's a lot, maybe I'll do another video on some more things that were taken from Final Fantasy X2 and elaborated on in further games. That's all from me. Have a good day.